Our passage of study for this morning has been deliberately forced on us, which is 1 Samuel chapter 7, particularly verses 15, which is verse 12. It's verse 12, yeah. Verses 12, which has the word Ebenezer on it, as my respectable president has already insinuated, that this came out of an experience. This came out of the interventions of God over the failures of men. I would not have time to deal with Ebenezer. Our hope is our anchor. It will take you time. Allow me just to attend to the first part of it, the Ebenezer part. Maybe as we go towards the end of the year, we can discuss issues of hope. Then later on, we can discuss the anchor story, But for the purposes of the discourse today, please let me restrict myself to the Ebenezer item there. The Ebenezer story does not come from the blue. There's a story behind it. There is, as we said on Friday when we started, when human beings prepare themselves for divine intervention, when human beings pray and prepare their hearts for divine visitation, God has never been silent to visit and show himself strong in those situations. When you prepare yourself, when you fast, when you pray, when you sacrifice, and you do what is humanly possible, you leave God no chance but to come in and fill in what God must do. Throughout the Bible, you will have messed up the purpose of Scripture if you convert the Bible into a dictum of dogma. By that I mean you cannot use the Bible solely for the purposes of developing theology. Because theology serves nobody. We don't believe in it, we believe in him. Our purpose of existence, therefore, is not driven by isms. Then we can say Adventism. It's as good as Islamism. It's as good as Mammonism. But when you talk Jesus, there's no Jesusism. The purpose of Scripture, therefore, for me, and this is now an old man talking in retrospect, the purpose of Scripture, therefore, it is to show that the human being, when he cooperates with God, he can do the impossible. You cannot miss that fiber throughout the Bible. They worked alone. They failed. They included God in the equation. Then the storyline changes. A story is told of a rabbit that had smelled some nice food across the railway line. And he started off to go and look for the nice smelling food on the other side of the railway line. Rumor has it that the train also was coming on its course. Unfortunately, there was a meeting on the railway line. They met, the story says. The story does not end well. It simply says, and the destiny of the rabbit was included at the arrival of the train. In simple words, he also had his own intentions. The train was on course with its own intentions. And when the two met, the greater took the upper. And the agenda of the small was forgotten. The conclusion of the story is that when you and God are on course, we all have destinations that we must reach. But when your direction collides with a divine movement on course, rumor has it that you will not be remembered. But God has a way of shifting, turning, twisting your destiny to be included in his destiny. Some have gone through the Bible. They call this the gospel. When men and women were heading towards death, and God knocked them towards life. Didn't hear me out there. Some call it rhema, when the word interjected. Some call it theophany. Those who are more educated and who are more calibrated in theology. Theophanic encounter. It is when the human weakness meets power of divine substance. And the humanity is totally confused, swallowed, and redirected towards God. When people meet this experience, they name their children. Huh? Some have named their children. So that constantly as they call these names, they go back. Like my grandfather, his name was Marara. My grandmother had children and they were dying and they were dying. And when this one was born, Marara. You also have that in your own cultures. You know what I'm talking about? And every time you would call this name, you want to be reminded of how many times God has intervened. And the name therefore becomes a point of contact. Not only were children named, Jacob did what he could do. Was running away from his brother, having cooked his blessings. And when he was leaning on the stone, the Bible then says, and in the midst of the night, God visited and planted a ladder between his mind and the throne of God. Angels were walking up and down the ladder. When he woke up in the morning, he said, truly the Lord has been here. I will call this place Bethel. And if you bring me back here again, alive, people have had to call places after experiences. This is where I get slightly mad with the white man who comes into Africa and names everything. As if local people don't have experiences with these rivers, with these mountains. You come around and say, this is Drakensberg, this is Jaksay, this is Olifantsfontein, this is what Fontaine. My foot, we have been here before. Our own experiences with our own geographical locations, we have allocated names to these places. You cannot call it Victoria Falls. It's Mosia Tunya, the place that thunders, the smoke that thunders. We know it before you came. Don't come around and say Cecil John Rhodes discovered or Moffat discovered. How do you discover what is there?